Let's fix these paragraphs. I'm going to show you the paragraph here that I'd given you, and this one is corrected, but I wanted you to hear my voice also so that you can hear where the stops and starts should be. My brother was always my best friend when I was a child. That's a full thought, especially as we two were almost alone in the world. That's not a full thought. It's one of those dependent clauses. So we can put them together. My brother was always my best friend when I was a child, comma, especially as we two were almost alone in the world, period. So this needs a comma and that needs a period. It ends the thought. We live with our old grandmother in a little house, comma, almost a shack, comma, in the country. This almost a shack is one of those interrupter clauses. It's additional information. And so it needs a comma on either side of it. We lived with our old grandmother in a little house, comma, almost a shack, comma, in the country. That is the entirety of where they lived. So it all can go together. Whenever I think of him now, I see a solemn, responsible boy, a boy too old for his years, who looked out for me no matter what. So that whole idea is about what is thought of in the mind's eye, in the imagination, when this person thinks of the brother. So let's look at how it's constructed. Whenever I think of him now, comma, I see a solemn, comma, responsible boy, comma, a boy too old for his years, comma, who looked out for me no matter what. So all of these are additional information. Whenever I think of him now, I see a solemn boy who looked out for me no matter what. That is the main sentence. The rest of it were all additional parts, additional descriptors, and therefore they get commas around them. Whenever I think of him now, comma, I see a solemn, comma, responsible boy. These two words were in a series describing the boy. If we go back to our comma lesson, if there are two descriptors, 1 comma, 10 descriptors, 9 commas, etc. What kind of a boy was he? A boy too old for his years. That's additional, who looked out for me no matter what. Once there was a bully, John Anson. And whenever we have a person's name inserted there, it gets commas on either side of it. That was in our comma lesson also. Once there was a bully, comma, John Anson, comma, who looked enormous to me, though he was probably an average 12-year-old. This, though he was probably an average 12-year-old, is just additional information. The base of the sentence was, once there was a bully who looked enormous to me. I've added the name, John Anson, so it gets commas. And I added this part, though he was probably an average 12-year-old, so it has to have a comma separating it from the original sentence as well. John had it in for me because he liked Lettice Grant. That's the full sentence. There's added information about who Lettice liked, me. So that gets a comma separating it from the sentence also. He decided to beat me up right before her eyes. I was lucky my brother came by. He didn't interfere any. He just stood there. So why do I have this semicolon here? Because this is a full sentence. He didn't interfere any. He didn't interfere. And he just stood there. I have my subject. Who was it? He. And what did he do? He stood there. Those are two separate sentences. And when I combine the two of them, because they're already related, he didn't interfere. He just stood there. Those are two related actions. I can combine them. And I combine them with a semicolon. Somehow, though, comma, his presence gave me confidence. This part is the full sentence. His presence gave me confidence. I've added somehow, though, a little bit of style in there, transition words, and I've got this comma to separate it. I kicked the stuffing out of John Anson. That is full and complete already. If my brother hadn't been there, comma, anytime we see if, when, been there, comma, I don't think I could have done it. And the reason a comma goes here, because if I had switched the sentence around, I don't think I could have done it if my brother hadn't been there. That's complete. Because I've switched the order to add interest to my story, I need a comma. So there was one way to have corrected this paragraph. So when you're correcting paragraphs or writing your own, please think of, do I have a topic? Do all of my sentences fit in with that topic, this story? And in those sentences, do I have shorter sentences and longer sentences for sentence variety. And in those longer sentences, are they run-on sentences and they really need to be shortened a little bit or have added punctuation like commas or semicolons? And then when I read those sentences back to myself, your ear is going to tell you a lot more than what you see on paper. When you read them back, was it a complete thought and I paused naturally? Well, I probably need punctuation there then, whether it's a period or a comma or semicolon. And if I'm running along too long and everything is really just going, and I don't stop for a breath, and now I'm on to totally different topics, but I'm still talking, it probably needs to be broken up a little bit also. So go over this. And I also have a second way that it could have been broken up. And your classmates had different ways as well. And my feedback would have told them if they were appropriate and correct. So that is how we corrected these paragraphs. You'll have more of these in your future, but you'll also have times when you're just writing your own, and it'll be from paragraphs to essays. And you'll want to have mastered how to get these paragraphs done properly with proper punctuation before we get there, because they will be graded assignments and you want to put your best foot forward. Thank you very much, and I hope you get something out of these corrections. Take care.